This world does not belong to the kind, nor to the cruel. It belongs to those who understand how to make others believe. In a place where kindness is mistaken for weakness, and cruelty is disguised as decisiveness, there is a truth few dare to face. Power is not physical strength, not superior intellect, but the ability to shape how others perceive. Whoever makes people believe wins. Whoever makes people want to listen leads. Imagine you are standing in a crowded room, voices overlapping, laughter filling the air, faces glowing under dim lights. Among them, there is someone who does not speak much, does not signal anything, yet somehow every gaze turns toward them. They are not necessarily beautiful, nor particularly striking. They simply carry something that cannot be explained, an energy that makes the whole room fall silent for a few seconds, as if everyone is waiting for them to speak. You look at them and wonder, what did they do to make others listen so intently? Maybe they know something you do not know, that people are not led by logic, but by feeling. And those who influence others are the ones who know how to make people feel understood, mirrored, and recognized. They do not need to prove they are smart, nor argue to win. They only need to let others see themselves reflected in their eyes. People call it the art of mirroring, a soft kind of power few realize they are under. Think about it. Who do you trust most? The one who makes you feel safe when you talk. The one who shares your rhythm, your tone, your laughter, your reactions. When they lean in, you lean too. When they pause, you are comfortable in the silence. And then you convince yourself, this person is just like me. That harmony is the magic of perception. In a world where everyone strives to stand out, powerful people choose to blend in, like a mirror reflecting exactly what others wish to see. They do not say, I understand you. They let others feel it. Because people do not love truth. They love the feeling of being understood. It does not take special skills, only subtle awareness, in the eyes, in the pauses, in the repetition of a word, in the gentle nod at the right time. That is enough for you to become a safe reflection in someone's mind. Power is born from familiarity, not from difference. That is the paradox few accept. We are taught to be unique, to make an impression, to prove we are special. But in truth, people trust what feels most like themselves. The more you try to stand out, the more distance they keep. The more you make them feel reflected, the more they open their hearts. And from that moment, the one who knows how to mirror begins to lead. When you make someone feel trust, you can lead them anywhere, not with commands, but with the belief they build themselves. The greatest influencers do not make people afraid. They make them believe that following is their own choice. But mirroring is only half the game. The other half, more delicate and far more difficult, is the art of disappearance. Some people show up too often, talk too much, share too much, thinking the more they appear, the more they will be remembered. But in truth, prolonged familiarity fades value. What is always available soon becomes ordinary. The truly powerful understand an ancient rule: scarcity creates desire. They are not always available. They do not rush to reply. They do not show up everywhere, because they understand that when you are not there, others begin to feel your absence. A postponed meeting sometimes carries more weight than 10 encounters. A silence at the right moment can be remembered more than 1,000 words. Scarcity is not manipulation. It is energy protection. When you give too easily, your time, your attention, your emotions, people unconsciously take them for granted. But when you choose carefully when to appear and when to retreat, your presence becomes a gift. People begin to wait for you, to notice every little gesture, every short phrase, because they know those moments are rare. So sometimes, power does not lie in action, but in intentional absence, not to manipulate, but to remind others that you have the power to choose silence, to choose distance, to choose not to be consumed by noise, because those who are everywhere will soon blend in, while those who know how to disappear become the mystery everyone wants to understand. Think of the last time you truly missed someone. Was it because they did something grand? Or because they stayed silent at the exact moment you expected a reply? That absence made your mind repeat their name. Imagine their words. Feel emotions that constant presence could never evoke. Power, sometimes, is simply the ability to make others think of you even when you are not there. And in that silence, they begin to connect you with something deeper: curiosity, respect, sometimes even fear. Because people fear what they cannot control, and nothing is harder to grasp than someone who knows when to step back. In a world full of noise, the one who stays silent at the right time is the one who commands attention. Not because they are loud, but because they make others wonder, what are they thinking? What do they know that I do not? That is where influence begins, a kind of power that needs no force, no title, no declaration. It comes from the feeling you leave in others, close enough to be trusted, distant enough to be respected. And perhaps the most dangerous thing about power is not in having it, but in realizing that it was never truly in your hands. It has always been in the minds of those who look at you. Once you understand that, you no longer need to control anyone. You only need to know when to reflect and when to disappear. There is a paradox in the game of influence. The rarer you are, the more you are desired. The easier you are to reach, the easier you are to forget. People do not value what lies within reach. They crave what they must wait for, what they must earn. Like a piece of music, without pauses, the listener grows tired. If you appear all the time, people will stop searching for you. Those who hold power are not afraid of silence. They understand that silence at the right moment echoes farther than any words. When someone asks you something, you do not always have to answer right away. Sometimes a few seconds of pause make your next words 10 times more powerful. That calmness makes others feel you are thoughtful, that your words are worth waiting for. While the impatient rush to prove their value, those who understand the game know that value comes from the ability to control the rhythm. Have you ever noticed that the people you respect the most are often not the easiest to reach? They are not the ones always available for every talk, every request, every message. They know when to open the door and when to keep it closed. They are not cold. They simply protect their energy. And because of that, every time they appear, it feels like an opportunity, not a given. But scarcity is not a game of indifference. It is the art of emotional strategy. You do not need to disappear completely, only to create small uncertainty. When people are not sure if you will show up, they care more. When you do not respond right away, they think about you longer. People are drawn to empty spaces of information. They imagine, they wait, they wonder. And in that process, you become the center of their mind without doing anything at all. However, true power is not about making others anxious, but about making them respect your boundaries. When you know how to stop at the right moment, others learn to measure themselves around you. They adjust their tone, their behavior, their timing, just to match your rhythm. In that moment, you no longer react to them. You set the pace, and in every interaction, the one who sets the pace is the one who leads. Observe those who truly have influence. They do not try to win every argument. They win by making others want to agree. Not with logic, but with emotion. Because every decision starts with emotion, and only later is justified by reason. When someone says, "I believe you because you make sense," what they really mean is, "I believe you because you feel right." Those who hold emotional power do not attack logic. They guide feelings. They know when to make others feel understood and when to make them feel the lack. They know people do everything to avoid loss. So they do not say, "Do this to gain more." They say, "If you do not act, you might miss your chance." They make others believe that following is self-protection. Sometimes they do not command. They ask, "What do you think if we try this way?" It sounds harmless, but in that question, there is already a direction. When others answer, they have unknowingly chosen the path you wanted. When they disagree, you do not argue. You smile, acknowledge their view, and gently say, "I understand." But what if we combine both ways? And in the end, they still follow the road you drew, only they believe it was their own choice. Some call it manipulation. Others call it the art of communication. Either way, it is the truth about how human psychology works, because every one of us wants to be heard, respected, and to feel in control. Those who understand this do not take away choice. They shape the frame so that every choice still leads to their desired outcome. A person with great influence never says, "I want you to do this." They say, "I am curious. What if we tried this way?" Or, "What do you think would happen if we did it differently?" That question not only opens conversation, it opens control. Because the one who asks the question is the one who guides the thinking. But there is a thin line between leading and controlling. If you learn only to steer others' emotions and forget honesty, that power will eventually destroy you. Because lasting influence needs a foundation, selective sincerity. When you mirror others with truth, when you truly listen and genuinely care, they can feel it. And the feeling of being understood is what creates loyalty, not fear. So learn to listen more than you speak. Do not wait only for your turn to talk. When someone shares, do not think of how to respond. Observe them, the way they breathe, look down, pause in the middle of a sentence. Every little detail is a map of emotions. From that map, you see what makes them anxious, what makes them feel connected. And when you say exactly what they need to hear, not because you plan it, but because you truly see them, you earn a purer kind of power, trust. Trust is the most subtle and fragile form of influence. You cannot demand it, you can only inspire it. But once you have it, you can guide others without saying another word. A small sentence, a gentle look, a quiet gesture is enough for them to understand what you mean. That is when influence becomes a silent language between two minds, a form of connection only those who learn to observe can understand. Some say in this world, the strongest are those who talk the most. But in truth, the strongest are those who make silence powerful. When you do not rush to fill the quiet, when you make others wait for what you will say next, you control the rhythm. And in every dance of psychology, the one who leads the rhythm shapes the steps of the other. So learn to keep a little distance, a little mystery. Do not let everyone know everything about you at once. Let them discover layer by layer. Like turning the pages of an unpredictable book, people value what they do not fully understand and desire what they cannot yet grasp. When you leave deliberate spaces, others will fill them with imagination, and imagination is always more beautiful than truth. That is when your influence takes root. Quiet, unforced, yet magnetic. A silent presence that makes people want to be near, want to understand you, want to prove they deserve your attention. And from that moment on, you no longer have to chase validation, because it will find its way to you. People often believe that to earn respect, they must make others feel inferior. But those who have walked far on the path of power understand the opposite. To rise, you must first know how to lift others up. Power does not come from making people smaller, but from your ability to make them shine in your presence. When someone feels better, more confident, and smarter because you are there, they begin to link their growth to you. And that is the root of loyalty. In a world where everyone wants to be seen, the wise choose to make others seen first. They do not fight for the spotlight, because they understand that reflected light lasts longer than self-created light. When you make someone feel recognized and respected, you are building an invisible wall of protection around yourself. People do not want to harm those who help them rise. And so, they become a natural shield for you, both loyal and willing. Those with deep influence never rush to claim credit. They let others tell their own stories of victory, then gently weave their presence into those stories. When success comes, they say, "You did it? I only helped a little." It sounds humble, but in truth, that is how they forever tie that success to your name. Because people never forget those who make them feel stronger than they were before. And on the other hand, the weak are those who can only win by making others lose. They belittle, criticize, and judge, believing it makes them stand out. But every time you make someone smaller, you erode your own influence. Because influence cannot live in fear, it only grows in trust and admiration. Ordinary people say, "I want others to recognize me." Influential people say, "I want others to be recognized because of me." These are two different paths. One depends on the approval of others. The other is the art of inspiring others to look up to you willingly. That is the nature of soft power. It does not force, it spreads. When you make others feel respected, you are not only planting a relationship, you are planting the roots of influence. And those roots, if nourished with subtlety and consistency, will grow deep enough that even when you are no longer there, people will still act in ways that benefit you, just like in close relationships. The person you remember most is not the one who spoke the sweetest words, but the one who made you feel safe being yourself. When you no longer need to defend yourself, when you are not afraid of judgment, you begin to let the other person into your world. And at that level, influence becomes connection, where there is no boundary between the one who leads and the one who follows. But to reach that depth, you must understand another rule. People are drawn to those they believe will win. The hidden world of influence runs on the instinct of the herd. Humans want to stand beside those who cannot lose. They do not need proof. They only need the feeling of certainty that this person will go far. And if you make them feel that way, they will willingly invest, support, and protect you. Those with vision know how to create that sense of inevitability. They speak about the future with confidence, as if everything has already been arranged. They do not say, "I hope." They say, "When I finish." They do not say, "If I succeed." They say, "When it happens." Every word, every tone, every breath plants in others a belief that failure is only a temporary obstacle. And when people believe you will succeed, they start helping you make it real. That is the effect of inevitability. When the faith of others becomes your driving force, a confident statement, a steady action, a series of small results, all build the image of someone who is rising. And people, by instinct, always want to walk beside those who are rising. But remember, never pretend to hold what you cannot sustain. False certainty is a double-edged sword. When your words no longer match reality, every bit of trust you built will collapse faster than you expect. So instead of showing off, accumulate. Start with small wins, things you can control and prove. Each victory is a brick in the castle of credibility. And once that castle is strong enough, you will not need to speak anymore. Others will speak for you. The world moves by perception, not by truth. When you make others see that you will succeed, they begin to act as if it has already happened. They speak of you with confidence. They bring your name into important conversations. They place you beside those worthy of admiration. And each of these small acts helps turn perception into reality. At that point, your power is no longer control. It is attraction. You do not have to pull people toward you. They come on their own because they feel safe in your orbit. They want to be part of your inevitable journey because no one wants to stand outside the circle of a winner. If you hear this and feel something awakening within you, perhaps it is the voice of instinct, the part of you that wants to be strong, respected, and seen, not just for kindness, but for presence. If this resonates with you, leave a small sign. Not because I need it, but because action is the only way to turn awareness into power. Write a thought, share what you have realized, or send this to someone who needs to understand that power is not the game of the cold-hearted. It is the art of awakening, because true power does not make you someone else. It brings you back to your deepest self, a person who knows their worth and does not need anyone's approval to exist. There is a truth few people want to admit. Complete independence is not the final form of strength. It is only the beginning, a layer of protection that shields you from dependence, but not yet true power. Real power begins when others need you, when your value becomes part of their lives. From that moment, you do not just exist, you become essential. And when someone needs you to feel whole, you have reached a level of influence that requires no commands. Those who understand the game of power do not try to separate themselves from the world. They weave a network, not to be trapped by it, but to make every thread lead back to them. They do not try to do everything. They choose to do what others cannot or will not do. They become the person people turn to when every other door is closed. Their skill does not need to be the best, only rare enough not to be easily replaced. Watch someone who truly holds influence in a community. They are always at the center of the flow of information. Everyone who needs help knows who to call. They connect people who have never met, creating value in the spaces others overlook. They never have to say, "I am important," because everyone already feels it. When people begin to rely on your abilities, you have entered the realm of lasting influence. But this reliance must be voluntary. If you make someone need you out of fear, they will find ways to escape you. But if they need you out of trust and respect, they will find ways to keep you close. That is why truly powerful people never lock the door. They create a door everyone wants to walk through. However, this kind of power is only safe when you are not dependent on any single person. Someone may love you, trust you, or need you, but if you let your whole world revolve around them, you have handed your power away. The wise build many relationships, many directions, many sources of energy, not out of suspicion, but out of freedom. When many connections lead toward you, you cannot be controlled, because no one is strong enough to unbalance you. Some people become the center of a network without ever planning it. They simply help when they can, listen when needed, connect when it makes sense. They do not calculate, yet slowly, people begin to see them as the bridge. And from that, they gain something no money can buy: social trust. A single word from them can change how others are perceived. A simple message from them can open a door someone could never open alone. That is the kind of power built on trust, not force. Yet in every network, information is the lifeblood. The wise listen more than they speak. They ask, observe, and remember. When someone shares a secret, they do not use it right away. They store it, waiting for the right moment. Every piece of information, no matter how small, holds value that changes with time. And the one who understands timing is the one who knows when to share and when to stay silent. This awareness gives them a quiet form of power. When people realize you know more than they thought, they become careful. When they see that you always have the right words at the right time, they start seeking your guidance. And once they get used to coming to you, your influence no longer needs to be spoken. It becomes instinct. However, there is a form of power even more subtle than making others need you: the power to shape reality itself. Most people live in a world created by someone else. They accept what is normal, what is reasonable, and rarely question who decided those limits. Those with true influence do not just live in reality, they redesign it. They understand that everything can be seen from many angles. A problem can be a crisis, but also a chance to prove strength. A change can be a loss, but also a transformation. They do not deny truth, they choose how to tell it. And people, who are guided more by stories than by facts, follow those who give them meaning. Such people never ask for permission to change things. They act and let the results speak. They do not need to declare, "I am doing something different," because their presence already says it. And over time, what once seemed unusual becomes the new normal. That is how they turn thought into reality, not through commands, but through the power of habits formed around them. Imagine you walk into a room where everyone feels lost about a problem. Someone says, "We are in trouble." But you simply say, "No, this is our chance to prove what we can do." The same situation, two sentences, two worlds. Your words do not just change how they think, they change how they feel. They no longer feel afraid, but inspired. From that moment, you have reshaped their reality without forcing anything. Those who master this art know that words are tools that shape perception. The way you name something decides how people feel about it. A problem and a challenge are different. Failure and a lesson are different. When you change words, you change feelings. When you change feelings, you change actions. And when you change actions, you change direction. Some will say that is manipulation. But if your perspective helps others feel less afraid, less limited, then it is positive guidance. Manipulation makes people smaller. Guidance makes them grow. And the only difference between the two lies in intention. This world is not ruled by the strongest, but by the best storytellers. Because storytellers do not just describe reality, they define it. And when you can define reality, you can make people believe they are seeing themselves in the mirror you hold up. That is when you no longer influence what people do, but how they see the world. And from that moment, you do not need to chase power anymore. Power begins to revolve around you. One day, you will realize that true influence does not lie in how many people follow your words, but in what remains after you leave. There are people who, when they disappear, the room returns to noise as if nothing happened, and no one mentions their name again. But there are also those who pass by only once, and long after they are gone, every decision and every word of others still carries their imprint. That is the highest level of power, the strength that transcends personal presence. The wise do not seek to win only in the present. They build systems that can win even when they are no longer there. They are not trapped in the need to prove themselves, because they understand that greatness is not being recognized now, but being continued long after. When you create a method, a habit, a way of thinking that others can use to succeed, you are no longer just a person. You become a principle of life. Think of it like a musician leaving behind a melody for the next generation. When that song is sung again, even though the writer is gone, the emotion still lives on. Influence is the same. It does not need fame or presence. It only needs to be planted in someone's mind, like a seed that keeps growing in places you have never been. That is why truly powerful people never keep knowledge to themselves. They rewrite, they teach, they share, not to be praised, but to ensure that what they have learned does not die with them. Because knowledge only lives when it is passed on, and influence only lasts when it is inherited. A single piece of advice may fade, but a method can live forever. The wise turn their experiences into structure, into systems of action that others can repeat. A way of speaking, a way of seeing, a chain of behavior, if repeated often enough, becomes a behavioral legacy. When you inspire others to act as you once did, not because you force them, but because they believe it is the right path, your influence becomes immortal. Some people spend their whole lives trying to make others afraid, just to be heard. But fear fades fast. When you leave, people will only remember that they feared you, and then they will try to forget. But if you make them see the world differently, they will remember, not because of you, but because of the better version of themselves that you awakened. That is the only kind of power that time cannot erase. Those who once followed Machiavelli may say, fear lasts longer than love. But the world has changed. In the age of information and connection, fear creates distance, while ideas bring people together. If you want to leave a lasting impact, plant ideas that can stand on their own without your protection. That is power that endures time. And to do that, you must begin with recording. Write down what you learn, distill what you understand. It does not have to be elaborate. One page, one note, one honest conversation. Every time you share a piece of your experience, you double your influence. Because what you say today may become someone's compass tomorrow. Then one day, when someone quotes your words in a meeting, when a stranger uses a method you once created to solve their problem, you will understand the feeling of immortal influence. You will not need titles or gratitude. Only the quiet knowing that your thoughts are still alive in other minds. Those who hold this kind of power no longer fear losing their place. They do not fear being replaced because they know that everyone they help, everyone they teach, becomes an extension of themselves. When they help someone grow, they do not lose power. They multiply it because the one who was helped will carry that spirit elsewhere, planting seeds in new ground. Your influence no longer lives in this finite body. It has become a current. And that current, if nourished by truth, will never dry up. It will travel farther than you imagine, reaching corners you have never touched. A single idea spoken in a quiet night may change someone's life across the world. A story you share may inspire a stranger to live differently. That is when you realize that power is not about controlling the present, but about shaping a future you may never see. People often say, true strength is making others do what you want. But that is only temporary power. True strength is making others want to do what is better than what you expected. When they no longer act for you, but for what you believe in. When they no longer need you to stand there, but still continue on the path you open. And in that moment, you have conquered what all seekers of power fear most, being forgotten. Because true influence does not need applause, nameplates, or praise. It only needs to live quietly in how people think, speak, and act, like invisible seeds you planted long ago. Perhaps that is the destination all who crave power are searching for, though few ever realize it. To be remembered not for controlling others, but for setting them free. Every journey toward power, whether born from instinct or strategy, eventually reaches the same point. A moment when one begins to ask, what is all this strength really for? In the early chapters of the game, we learn how to influence, to understand, to lead. But then, a quiet question rises from within. What is the purpose of it all? Because if power exists only to prove that we can control others, it will soon become hollow. But if power is a tool to build something lasting, something deeper, an idea, a community, a better world, then it begins to carry meaning. Those who mature in influence no longer ask, how can I be respected? They ask, how can what I create still matter after I am gone? The ancients called this the transformation of power, when it transcends personal ambition and becomes a source of positive influence. These people no longer chase the feeling of being heard, seen, or acknowledged. They begin to build spaces where others can also be heard, seen, and recognized, because they understand that true influence does not create followers. It creates successors. So the truly powerful are never afraid to share. They teach others how to see, how to think, how to act, not to create copies, but to create individuals who can stand on their own. They understand that when the people around them grow, their circle of influence expands, not fades. And when they help others become stronger versions of themselves, they are laying the foundation for their own legacy. At the deepest level of influence, there is a quiet truth. Those who have been helped never forget the moment someone first believed in them. You may forget the advice, but you never forget the moment someone looked at you and said, "I believe you can do it." That simple sentence can change the course of a life. If you have ever received such words, you know how powerful they can be. And if you have ever said them to someone else, you know how healing that moment can feel. It shows that influence does not have to come with manipulation. It can be a silent form of support, the ability to touch the brightest part of another person and awaken it. In that moment, you no longer hold power. Power flows through you, like water through a stream, nourishing without possession. But to reach that level, you must go through something far more difficult: the process of dissolving the ego. The ego always craves recognition, the desire to be credited, to be known as the one who made it happen. Lasting influence demands the opposite, to step out of the frame and let others continue the story. Only when you no longer need the spotlight can your light last. Those who have walked through both the light and shadow of power understand this well. They have felt the thrill of control and found it empty. They have won every argument and realized no one truly stayed. Then they learned that real strength is making others want to stay near you, not from fear, but from peace. This is influence without force, where people come to you willingly. You may have met such people. They do not speak loudly or act superior, yet when they appear, the energy in the room shifts. They make others want to slow down, think deeper, and live with more grace. They do not preach, they embody. Their influence is not in their words, but in their presence. Those who reach this level understand that every action, every look, every choice can become a signal for someone else. So they move with intention, speak with care, and listen deeply. They know that their greatest influence lies not in what they say, but in what they practice. From this point, power is no longer a battle. It becomes the art of balance. Balance between strength and compassion, between confidence and humility, between far-reaching vision and grounded listening. When you understand this, you stop competing. You simply live, and everything around you begins to realign naturally. If there is one truth the world teaches too late, it is this: true influence is not making others follow you. It is inspiring them to become better versions of themselves. When you understand that, every action and every decision carries new meaning. You no longer speak to convince. You speak to plant seeds. You no longer teach to control. You teach to set free. And when others continue that journey without you, you will have reached something Machiavelli could never imagine: influence that heals. Influence that does not feed on darkness, but thrives in the light of transformation. Such people do not try to carve their names into history. They leave themselves in the memories of others, and those memories, passed from one person to another, make them part of a greater story. They do not need to be remembered as powerful, only as the person who changed how someone saw the world. At that point, you understand that true strength is never the destination. It is the bridge between self and others, between ambition and meaning, between control and surrender. And when you learn to walk across that bridge, you no longer ask, "How can I gain influence?" You begin to ask, "How is my influence shaping the world, for better or worse?" Because in the end, the only thing that separates the wise from the manipulative is intention. Two people may share the same skill, the same strategy, the same understanding, but one uses it to lift, the other to pull down, and the world, even if slowly, will always feel the difference. You can learn every secret of influence, read every theory of power, but if you lack one thing, honesty with yourself, it will all collapse. Because influence is never a double-edged sword. It is a mirror. And if you look into it with darkness, darkness is all that will look back. There will come a moment when everything you have learned about power, influence, and the subtle strategies of the human mind becomes quiet within you. No longer theory, no longer calculation, but an awakened instinct. At that moment, you understand that you do not need to manipulate to be respected. You do not need to win to be seen. You do not need to claim to be remembered. You only need to choose how to be present. There are two kinds of people in this world: those who let the world shape them, and those who shape the world around them. Both are influenced, but in different ways. The first lives inside stories written by others. They react, they defend, they adapt. The second does more than react. They create. They rewrite the story. They redefine what seemed unchangeable. And if you have come this far, perhaps deep down, you know you belong to the second kind. But the final question remains: what will you do with this power? Will you use it to prove yourself, or to create something that matters? The difference does not lie in skill, but in choice. Because power, no matter how refined, is only a tool. It can turn you into a controller or into a guide. It can leave you alone at the top or surrounded by those who want to rise with you. Some use power to make others bow their heads. But the wise use power to make others lift theirs, to see the strength they never knew they had. They do not make people afraid. They make people believe. And that belief, once it spreads, becomes a soft, unbreakable legacy. Remember, respect never grows from fear. It only flourishes in the soil of trust and truth. When people believe in you because they sense your clarity, when you no longer need to prove anything, you become an anchor. And the world, in all its chaos, always needs such anchors. Deep down, people are not looking for leaders. They are looking for guidance. They do not need someone to command them. They need someone who makes them feel safe stepping into the unknown. And a true guide is not the one who walks ahead, but the one calm enough to walk beside. This is the kind of power that does not make noise, but brings order to the hearts of others. You may not realize it, but every glance, every reaction, every choice you make is teaching others how to face the world. Someone sees you remain steady in a storm, and they learn resilience. Someone hears you speak with calm conviction, and they learn balance. Influence does not always need speeches. Sometimes it is simply the art of being present in the right way. And then perhaps you will realize that everything you once chased, recognition, affection, power, a voice, no longer matters so much. Because when you truly understand yourself, you no longer need to be loved to feel valuable, nor to be heard to know you have influence. Your silence alone becomes enough for the world to feel you. People will always speak of power as something dangerous, but if you have walked far enough, you will see that power is only dangerous in the hands of those who do not know themselves. When it rests in those who have learned to observe, to stop, to let go, power becomes peace. Peace, because you are no longer pulled by reaction, no longer need attention, no longer need to prove your existence. And in that state, something strange happens. Others begin to sense your steadiness, and they come closer, not because you promise anything, but because they are drawn to the stillness within you. They feel in you what the world is missing: clarity, truth, calm, and from that, they follow willingly. You see, true influence is not making others listen to your words. It is making them think of you when you are silent. It is when their actions carry traces of how you once lived and chose. It is when, years later, someone says, "I once met a person who made me see the world differently." That is the immortality of influence. But before that happens, there is a small moment, the moment when it all begins. It is not loud or grand. It has no dramatic music. It is the instant you look into the mirror and ask yourself, how am I shaping this world? No one else hears that question. No one can answer it for you. But that very moment, you step across the line between being influenced and becoming an influence. You can choose the path of being liked, comfortable, safe, with little resistance. Or you can choose the path of being respected, harder, lonelier, but more real. Being liked is about emotion. Being respected is about essence. And when the world grows too loud, what people will remember is not what you said, but how you showed up. So when this voice fades, do not just listen as if it were a story. Hear it as a calling. Because power does not lie in what you know, but in how you use what you know. If you do not use it, others will use it to shape you. If you do not influence, you will become the product of someone else's influence. And choosing to do nothing is still a choice. There will always be people who talk more, do more, compete more, but very few have the courage to stay silent, to observe, and to reshape order from within. If you are one of them, you have nothing more to prove. You only need to begin. One different word, one small act, one new perspective, and slowly everything around you will begin to change. Because in the end, the most dangerous person is not the manipulator, but the one who does not realize they are being manipulated. Once you see the structure of influence, you can never unsee it. From that moment on, you have crossed over to the other side, where power is no longer a goal, but a tool to create something better. The world does not need more powerful people. It needs more awakened ones. And perhaps, if you have listened this far, you have already begun to become one of them. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.